Well, it's just me in the shed today, and the reason for that is because today we're going to try and build a new area of the shed. Now this is something that, for me, I don't really get the chance to do very often anymore because the shed is pretty much full. There's not a lot of space left for me to build new areas for specific reasons or different tooling or something like that. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be a lengthy process. It's going to be something that I'd sort of do over the next couple of weeks. But anyway, today we're going to get started on it. So let me show you what we're doing. So as many of you would know, recently in the channel we've been really getting into 3D printing and 3D scanning. And we've been working with this 3D printer made by Prusa, the Core 1, and it has been a massive contribution to the shed. But with this new technology, 3D scanning and specifically 3D printing, it does tend to sort of grow. Yeah, the printer is one thing, and you know, they're not small items, they do take up room on the bench, but it's the stuff that comes with them that takes up a lot of space, like your filaments, your tooling, your glues. And as you can see, it starts to get really messy really quickly. And now for me, that's not gonna fly. This bench right here, you remember many years ago, when we built it, it was built to be a clean area where we could come and work on. This is sort of our home base. And what I found recently is the addition of the 3D printer here, it's just not working anymore because there's just too much going on. So we need to do something about it. We need to move this thing. And to do that, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna build a whole new area dedicated to 3D scanning and 3D printing. And where we're gonna do that is, we're going to do that right here. And reason number 2 is we got a brand new Prusa Core 1 L. So basically a Core 1 on a bigger scale, hence the L. And the key feature about that is it means that we're going to be able to print bigger pieces in one go, which is really handy when you're going to be looking at doing stuff like printing like entire dashes or something like that. And on top of that, it has a bunch of new features which are going to make this thing an absolute beast. I'm so keen to get this thing set up and start using it. But for now, let me show you where we're going to build this new area and what it's going to look like. I've actually spent a little bit of time on Google SketchUp just trying to plan out and map out what this thing's going to look like before I get stuck into it. That's something that I do quite a lot when it comes to building or designing stuff in the shed or around the home. I like to get a 3D representation of it in CAD form. I find that's just a really handy way to sort of really map out and plan out what everything's going to look like, and it means you can get things into sort of tighter areas and build areas specifically for what you're trying to do rather than just sort of guessing as you're going, and then I find you end up finishing a project going, oh damn, if I had thought about this early in the project, I could have put this here instead of there and it would have made the whole thing flow a lot better. So as you can see, it's sort of just going to be like an L-shaped bench, and then the filaments, I'm going to try and sit underneath that bench on some shelving, and I think it's going to look a lot neater than having it up on the wall. Before we can even get stuck in any of that, what I need to do is I need to start cladding the walls here, similar to what we did with the Mega Bench over there, just getting some yellow tongue sheeting. So anyway, let's get started on that. Let's start cladding the area out with some yellow tongue. If that window wasn't there, it'd be a lot easier. Alright, now before I screw that in, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a window frame around this, because I realise if I make that now, then I can put up my pieces and then screw my full panel on, and then get a router and run around with a router and router out the windowsill, rather than having to try and cut this area out on the bench and not end up with a nice finish. So alright, let's see how she goes. Oh, not bad. Oh yeah. I'm happy with that. Alright, so this first panel is in, looking pretty good. As you can see, I leave a 10mm gap on the bottom of all my yellow tongue walling that I do. The reason being is if this floor ever floods, then I don't have to worry about the water actually getting up into the yellow tongue and soaking up into it, so that's just why I do that. But otherwise, looks pretty good. This section of the wall is up. Now it's time to get my window back. So I'm going to router that out now because I've got my frame inside. I can use that as a template. Just send a router through it with a flush cut bit. And fingers crossed, the window comes out and it works. So let's see what happens. Alright, back to it. Well, we once again have a window. Routering out was actually a pain in the ass. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, and unfortunately, I didn't screw this in initially, so when I was routering this actually started to flex, and now I've ended up with that rough edge. Doesn't really matter anyway, because even where I did do it, you can see the router grabbed a couple of times, and I missed a couple of screws here. It is what it is, you know, it's just one of those things, but what I'll do is I'll cover this in some aluminium trim all the way around to hide that, to neaten it up and make it look better. But now that that section is done, I'm going to move to this section and get 2 panels in here because I've only got 2 full panels left, and then hopefully that should cover just about that. Once I get that done, then I can worry about filling in these end bits here with offcuts and stuff. So let's get that done and see how we go. Alright, well, all the panels are up now. That is pretty much all I'm going to do. Sort of finish it off where I want it to go. It probably looks a little bit strange with the pieces on top of that window not being done and by the side of that door not being done either, but it's using the material that I had and even some scrap that I had. I don't really want to buy any more because then I'm investing more money into this, what is already an expensive area as it is. So I'm going to leave it at that, and once I paint it, I'm hoping it'll sort of get hidden away, and when I trim it up and everything, it'll look even better. And yeah, it's looking really good. So next step is to paint it. Probably not going to film that because I hate painting at the best of time. Anyway, successful day. Okay, well, it has been a couple of days now, and as you can see, I've done a little bit of work. So since you guys last saw it, I've obviously painted it. So I just used some paint that I had left over from stuff that I was doing around the house. It actually turned out pretty well. I like the color match because it sort of blends into the shed a little bit rather than standing out quite so much. I didn't want to go white. I wanted to have a color specifically because white is going to look real dirty and stuff really quickly, as we found out with the bench over there. So I thought I'd go with a bit of color and just make it look a little bit different compared to the rest of the shed. I also put some aluminium trim all the way around the edges of this thing just to clean it up a little bit, makes it look a little bit neater and a little bit nicer, I think. It's pretty easy. All I did was just do that in the miter saw, and then I just glued it in with liquid nail, and it's all come up quite well. Pretty happy with that. And I also have a blind now. So I got a blind off a mate of mine secondhand, which is really, really handy because when it comes to filming, especially this area, having a window outside often destroys the white balance on the camera, and it means that outside looks really bright and then inside what I'm trying to film in does really dark. So being able to close that now will help a great deal in the future when it comes to filming, because it means now we can actually start filming that way and avoiding the window when we're filming in this area here. Not something generally you have to consider in a shed, but for what we do with the filming aspect of things, it is something that we have to consider. So the plan is from here, what now I'm going to do is I'm going to build my bench. So the bench, like I said, is going to be an L-shaped bench. Now the original plan for this area was the bench was going to be a little bit higher than this bench here. You remember my electrical cart that I built a few months ago? Well, I need a home for that. And what I was going to do, or plan to do, was store that underneath this bench. So it would sit somewhere here. But it would mean that my bench top height would have to be somewhere around 1150 high, which is getting sort of pretty tall. It's getting up there. The 3D printers are pretty tall. By the time I come up from this bench here, to 1150 high, somewhere about there, it means the top of the 3D printer, I wouldn't actually be able to see it. And sometimes when you're 3D printing, I find I want to be looking over the top of the printer and looking directly down on top of it, just to see what my printer's doing. And having the bench that high means it would be really difficult to be able to do that. And secondly, and most importantly, I got this wicked stool from King Chrome that I really want to utilize because I think it's a really cool looking bit of kit. And I was sitting on it before next to this bench here, and I realized that if the bench was any higher than what this bench is right here, if I'm sitting there working on my laptop or scanning something or anything like that, sitting on this specific seat, it would mean that my arms would sort of be up here. It wouldn't be quite at the natural position when you're working at a workstation where you want to sort of have your back straight and your arms sort of down a little bit, not working up here. And I don't reckon I ended up liking it all that much. So as much as I would love to build this bench a little bit higher so I can put my electrical cart underneath it, I think I'm going to go away from that, and I'm actually going to build it to the same height as this bench, because sitting at this bench now on this particular seat, this actually works really, really well. It's at the right height. It means that we're going to basically just butt it straight up this and run it across. It'll be the same level. I've got the same material that I use in these. They're just some Spec-Rite desktops from Bunnings. First thing I need to do is I'm going to put a little bit of angle iron across the width of these walls, and that's going to be what my bench tops sit on, because unlike all the other benches that I build where I build steel frames underneath and then sit my bench tops on top for strength, I'm not doing that in this case because this isn't the sort of area where I'm going to be hammering stuff or putting really heavy things on like gearboxes or anything like that, like I would with these benches. So that it doesn't need that strength, doesn't need that support. So we're going away with that, and we're just going to rely on the timber itself to support the weight of whatever's on top of this. So let's get into it. Spot on. That's good. Alright, so I'm sitting this one on top of this piece. The reason being is now I can easily get my lines to get this miter, this 45, to line up really nice. Right, now I've trimmed it. So with that showing its sort of shape that it's going to end up, I'm pretty happy with that. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to build a frame here. So I am building a steel H frame that's going to go from the bottom of here and down to the ground here, and that's going to support this side because that side is supported by the original bench. This side has nothing. So I got to make sure this is level, and then I'm going to build the little H frame in here now. Because I'm joining two pieces of this desktop with a miter, or the 45 in the middle, I need to have something to stop them, to make sure that they end up flush and level as in the top of it, to stop them from moving up and down. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use these little biscuit things that are used in woodworking, and I'm just going to use my little router here with a, I don't even know what you call that, a rebate maker thingy, and we're going to cut little grooves all the way along this so I can slide that biscuit in, glue it in place, and that should mean, or hopefully, get these to butt up nice and flush. I'll probably put some screws underneath it as well too to pull it tight. I don't know yet, we'll see how it goes. Then I can start to actually think about getting it mounted onto there, which will be a big step. So let's get that done and keep going. Sweet. It's smoky. bad. Alright, so to get these two pieces held in tight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these benchtop connectors. You drill 2 holes there like that and then a hole across them, and then these pull together tightly. And it's supposed to keep them nice and taut. Now, you're supposed to use a Forstner bit for these in order to get the hole right, but I don't have one of those, so we're using a hole saw today, and hopefully we don't go all the way through the top. Fingers crossed. Alright, so they're done. I mean, they're not the cleanest you're ever going to see because I didn't have the right tools, but they will serve their purpose. They'll sit in like that, that one pulls in there, and they're going to pull in tight together. Gluing this in place is probably going to be real messy, but it is what it is. That's in there like that. Now, because that's keyed, I should be able to pull this out. Yep, I can. Am I regretting doing a miter's edge? We'll see. Alright, so my frame is dried and ready to go, and all I've done is put these thread inserts in the bottom of the tubes here, which I'll then screw these feet into. So now I'll attach it to that, get it level, so this whole thing is level, and then I can work on getting this waterfall edge finished, which pretty much finishes up the bench. And then I'm also going to look at whether or not I need to put a support underneath there going back to that wall, because thinking about it, there's going to be a lot of weight right on this bench here because of the 2 printers. They're not light, so I might put a 45 in back to the wall. I don't know yet, but first up, let's get this in. Alright, well, I left the bench overnight to dry, and then I came in this morning and I gave it a quick wet and dry sand with some, I think 800, and then I went to 1200, just to sort of try and take away the roughness of the texture of the sealant. It's come up pretty well. Like, it's not perfect by any means, but it's actually pretty good, to be honest. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, basically, we're ready to start filling this thing up. So what I reckon we should do is, I reckon we should have a look at the Prusa Core 1 L. Pretty sure it's Prusa. I say Prusa, but everyone's telling me it's Prusa. So as I said earlier on in the episode, this is Prusa's brand new printer, and it is the Core 1 L. Now, in simple terms, this is supposed to be the Core 1, like the one we've been using over there. Now, it is essentially that same printer, just bigger, and got a few more upgrades to make it an even better and more reliable machine than what that already was. So I'm so keen to have a look at it, because this has been sitting in the shed for about a month now, and I haven't been able to open it because I've been waiting to build the bench. So let's get a look at it. That's fancy. Got a little time for the sled. We were talking about before that this is basically a Core 1 except bigger. That's not exactly true. There are a lot of upgrades that this thing has had compared to the Core 1. It also has an aluminium heat bed. And the reason why the aluminium heat bed is important is because that is designed specifically to get the heat of the bed much more uniform compared to other models. And that's important when it comes to printing materials that are usually hard to print, like your more engineering style materials, especially with your ABSs and your ASAs, where uneven bed temperatures can cause curling and lifting on the model itself. When you're printing this stuff, if the material itself or the unit starts to cool down too quickly, you get things like this, where you get layer separation and lift, and that comes from the layers of the model actually cooling too quickly and not adhering to the layer below. Core 1L is going to combat that by using that big aluminium bed and utilizing that as a chamber heater for the entire printer. And by doing that, you can get the chamber temperature of this thing up to about 60 degrees, which would be a massive help when it comes to printing stuff like this, because it'll just keep this thing warmer, keep layer adhesion better, and keep the warping to a minimal. Take all the cardboard protection stuff off. Snap the screen into place, it's all magnetic, so like so. Can go. That's pretty cool. Now, one of the other things that I'm going to be running in this area, power-wise, is I'm going to be running a little mini computer. I bought this little mini computer off Marketplace. I think it cost me like 150 bucks. It's a basic sort of little desktop computer used in an office. I like it because it's tiny, so I can sort of put it in this area and not worry about taking up a lot of space. And I'm using my old monitor from my editing computer inside. And the idea of this computer and having it set up in here is not to make this my modeling computer or anything like that, because this computer just I don't think will have enough power to be able to actually handle the big CAD software. If I'm going to do that out here, what I'll do is I'll bring my laptop out here and use that here. This computer is purely going to be used to operate these two printers. Now, these two printers don't need computers to be operated. You can run them off your phone. But one thing I found when I've been using the printer is I set everything up. I set it all up inside on my computer inside or my laptop, and then I've got to run back out here, turn the printers on, or activate something or change something. And if I want to make a quick change to the print file, I've got to go back inside, change it, come back outside, which means I can do all my setup and everything here right next to the printers. But what I'm trying to figure out now is where I'm going to mount the screen. I'm thinking I want to mount the screen sort of up here, because that will allow me to, one, hide my switchboard, and two, watch YouTube and stuff when I'm in the shed and have it playing in the background, because I've never had a screen or a TV or anything out in the shed, and I might enjoy it. So I want to put it up there. Now, when I thought about using this old monitor that I have laying around for a wall mount type situation, I just thought, you know, just go online and buy myself a universal wall mount monitor arm, which I did. One thing that I figured out pretty quickly is that these universal mounts, which are usually pretty simple, they bolt onto the back of your monitors and work quite well, aren't going to work for my monitor, because my monitor, for whatever reason, LG decided they're going to make it so that it cannot use one of these, because it's got this stupid stand. This stupid stand separates here and leaves this top piece here, but you can't just like pull that out and bolt that on. It's really bizarre and really strange. So what I ended up doing was I made my own adapter using the Prusa 3D printer. And the way that I did that is I scanned this, basically replicated it in this little oversized block that you see here. That block then sits inside the monitor like that to support it, and then this slides inside like that, and that is my adapter. So hopefully that's going to work. I feel like that's too tall. Alright, I dropped it down a little bit because it was way too high before, which is kind of annoying because now I have holes in my brand new wall, but I think I might put a shelf or something up there anyway, so we might be able to hide them with something. At the end of the day, this is a shed, and I need to remember that. So now, if my calculations are correct, this should be able to sit in here like that. That's good. That's what I wanted. I wanted it sort of there. And if need be, and I want to, I can bring it up and put it up over there to see it anywhere in the shed. Look up YouTube tutorials when we're stuffing things up, and we can watch it from the hoist on how to do it. So, whilst on the topic of laying things out, I also have a bunch of new stuff that I'm going to put in that bench area in my brand new King Chrome carry bag. In this bag, we have, most importantly, a new toolbox. Mini toolbox. More on that in a minute. King Chrome have just released a bunch of automotive tools as well too, and one of those things that they've released are these bearing separators. I got to use these here in the shed a few months ago, and it was made like getting bearings off axles super easy. How cool is that? Now, the reason why I have this little King Chrome tool chest is not just because it looks really awesome, which it does. One thing that you find with 3D printing is there's a lot of like small and intricate tools that you're going to be using that you want to have close by. Things like little tiny pliers, little tiny cutters, your glues and stuff for your print bed, some sandpaper and stuff, a vacuum pump to seal up all the filaments to keep them dry and that. And I was trying to find like a little tiny drawer system to try and keep all that in place that was small and compact. And this thing, as much as it's a little bit of a novelty item, is actually going to be really useful and perfect for exactly that. It even comes with its own little wheels and everything. I don't know if I need the wheels, but they're there if I do want them. We'll bolt this together, and then we're going to figure out where this lives, so then we can figure out where everything else lives, and figure out where we want our power points. Alright, well it has been a minute, but a lot has happened since I last checked in, and by a lot I mean the power has now been ran to all the power points, which means now that everything is operational. So I've got everything plugged in, I have the 2 printers hooked up, I have the Core 1L at the moment doing a test print, its first ever test print, just to see how it goes. I also have the computer hooked up as well too, so I've got the computer sitting in under there with the screen all hooked up. I'm just downloading the Prusa slicer at the minute, the software, so that I can hook directly up to these printers and run directly from there. I have a little toolbox set up. I ended up having a 2-gang power point there, a 4-gang power point there, and another 4-gang power point down there, as well as on the power to the printers. I also put one of the grid connect switches on it, so that means I can turn the printers on and off remotely. So if I want to start the printer and warm it up, I can turn it on remotely anywhere, and I could send stuff directly to the printer if I wanted to, without even having to step foot into the shed, which I think is absolutely awesome. And also, once it's finished printing at the end of the night, sometimes this thing finishes in the middle of the night, I can turn it off remotely as well too, without even having to get out of bed and do it on a schedule. So that's pretty cool. And you can see there the support that I put in to hold that printer up. So this bench is really solid now. So now that I have everything sort of set up and these things are ready to print, I realized one of the first jobs that I want to use them for is I want to make a couple of shelves that are going to go maybe up this wall here, and maybe one that goes across the top of this desk here, just to be able to put stuff on and have it all nice and local and close. I'm going to make these shelves out of the leftover timber that we used for this bench here, because I've got a fair bit left, and I figured it'll look good following that theme for these shelves. Now, I could go down to Bunnings and I could go get myself some shelf brackets, or I could make my own and 3D print them. So we're going to do that. We're going to set up both these printers to run these brackets that I made up. They're nothing special. I just designed them in CAD last night. And we're going to see how they go and run them both at the same time. First time we're going to be running 2 printers in the shed here. We're going to send it to the Core 1. The files are downloading now. It'll take a minute for it to kick into gear. The print farm is in action. They're looking good. Come along nicely. While I was waiting for that printing to finish, I ended up cutting up the shelves that I was talking about, and I also made a little nook for the 3D scanners. I'll show you how that looks once I get it mounted up. But they're all done, but more importantly, 5 hours later, our prints are now finished and ready. One set. So there we have it. We have our shelf brackets. And now the best part is, now that the printers have done their job, I can turn them off directly from my phone. Just like that. Which is very, very handy, which means I don't need to get out of bed anymore in the middle of the night to go turn them off. That one there, like that. And then the next one will go in there. Like that. Spot on level. Not bad. So the shelves are up. I ended up putting another bracket in there just to be sure. Probably doesn't need it, but I just wanted to be sure that it's not going to like bow over time. I can still access my switchboard if I move this right out of the way. Still in there, which is good. What I'm going to do now is turn my attention to building a drawer under here to store some necessary stuff that we're going to need for the printers. Fun fact, my very first job when I was in high school and then when I was studying was at a cabinet maker shop. So this takes me way back, and I know that right now my boss back then will be screaming at the screen right now telling me I'm doing it all wrong. But we're gonna make it work anyway. Sorry, Jeff. Alright, I need to get the front face of this drawer put on, and I want to make sure that I get it all lined up properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of bits of double-sided tape on, and then I can stick my fascia board to the drawer front, get it lined up, get all the gaps looking correct and nice, drill it, screw it, pull it back off and take this double-sided tape off. I was going to do this with spaces and stuff, but I think I'm just going to eyeball it. The drawer is in, so the sealer has dried on it. I put the face on it this morning and it's working quite well. Now I messed up originally when I made this drawer because the face, I was originally going to make it so it came down and sat a little proud of the actual base of the drawer, maybe 10 mil. And the idea was that I could get my hand underneath that and use that to pull the drawer out. But when I made it probably a little bit too shallow, and if I was to lift the base of the drawer 10 mil up, it would mean stacking stuff like these glue containers and stuff wouldn't have fit in the drawer, and by dropping it just a little bit more, it means I can put them upright, which saves a lot of space when I'm storing that sort of thing. Now, like I said, the disadvantage of that is it means that I've got nowhere to grab this drawer because that's flush down the bottom. So what I ended up doing yesterday was I drew up a quick little lip like this. It's just basically a triangle, and it's going to go underneath the drawer like that. So you'll barely even see it, and all it is going to do is create like a little bit of a lip that we can use to open the drawer. This is 840 mil. The L can print up to 300 mil. So I ended up doing it in 3 pieces, and I made some dovetails so it all clicks together, and then we can screw it to the bottom of the drawer, and then we have our nice little hidden handle. I didn't want any handles coming out or protruding off the face like that because I don't want to be catching it when I'm walking by accident and hitting it. So this is like a stealth little handle, but it dovetails together, which is hard to do one-handed, just like that, to create one big one. And then I'm just going to mount it to the bottom. And the idea is it just creates that lip so I can pull on that to open the drawer. Perfect. It actually works really mint. Alright, so the print/scanning area is just about finished. A couple last things that I want to add to it to really finish this thing off and make it look good. It's mainly just aesthetics things. But before I get into that and we finish like the final reveal of how it all looks, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a upgrade kit to the old Core 1. Now, I mentioned when the Core 1L came along, it comes with a fair few upgrades. However, that does not mean the Core 1 is now redundant, because Prusa, unlike any other company that I really know of, they not only give you the ability, but they encourage you to upgrade your machines to keep them up to current spec. Rather than you buying a printer or something like that and then in 2 years it's redundant because there's a new model that's coming out with new upgrades and such like that, they actually now sell kits for the Core 1 to match some of the features that the Core 1L have. One thing that I know that is included is an upgrade to make the top vents in these things automated, just like the Core 1L. Core 1L has the ability for the printer head to actually come along and swipe across these vents here to open them up automatically, which means you don't need to do that. The Core 1, that previously was manual. So if you were changing from filaments, some filaments require the vents to be open and some filaments require the vents to be closed. That all depends on what your chamber temperature needs to be for the print itself. You'd have to come along and you'd have to manually open the vents yourself. Now, not a huge deal. It just meant that you had to be by the printer. But with the addition of a couple of pieces, we can set that up so that the vents will now become automated. So let's get that installed. There's an instruction manual that I've got to go through to get this thing modified, but I don't think it takes too long. So we'll smash that out and make this thing a whole lot newer. The handy thing about this toolbox is quite easy to move around. So now that that is all done, all that we need to do now is update the firmware in this thing, which we can do directly from this computer over the interwebs on the Wi-Fi to the machine itself. And just like that, we'll have a Core 1 Plus with its new features ready to go. Okay, so finally, after what has turned into weeks and weeks of getting this project done, you know, little bits at a time, the printer / scanning area is finally finished. When I say finished, there's still things that I might change or add to it as time goes on. So far, I'm really happy with it. I've already used it a fair bit when I've been printing things and such. It's an awesome space to work in. I guess overall, it looks very similar to the plan that I drew up in SketchUp all those weeks ago. A couple of changes here and there, but overall, I think the basic design of this area has worked out really well. One of the main reasons why I wanted to set up a dedicated scanning and printing area was for the scanner itself. There are a couple of components that the scanner needs in order to work. Like, I need my laptop. Unfortunately, I can't run it off the computer on the bench here because that computer just isn't powerful enough to be able to handle the Creality Sermon S1. So when it comes to scanning and stuff like that, and designing as well too, when it comes to CAD, I'll do everything off my laptop. So I'll have the laptop set up here to work off. And that was one of the reasons why I put this shelf in here, so I can put my keyboard and everything for that computer up on there when I'm not using it, and have the laptop here right where it needs to be. But as you can see, having this little work area here means that I can bring in things that I need to scan. Small stuff like this, put it on the bench, get it scanned, get a complete model of it, and then I can go ahead and modify it if need be, and then send it directly to the printers, all from this desk right here, rather than going in and out of the house and all that like I used to have to do. So this will make life so much easier and so much more efficient when it comes to doing projects like this. And then once I've scanned everything, got all the information that I need, I can then just pack it all up, put it away in its home where it belongs. It's all neat, it's all clean, and it'll be there ready for me the next time I need to use it. So for me, that in itself is a huge win, and I'm really stoked with how this has turned out, and I can't wait to sort of keep using this in the future and learn more about these technologies that are now sort of available for anyone in their home shed, doing exactly what we do here, and seeing what potential this stuff has to use in future builds, and also in the shed, home, anywhere else really. So that is pretty much it for this episode. The 3D printing / scanning area is now done. I really need to come up with a better name than that because it's far too long to keep repeating that over and over again. It is something that is a little bit different for the home workshop, but I do believe that in the near future it is an area that is going to become more and more prevalent or more popular as time goes on and this technology advances, and people at home like myself start to realize the potentials that these technologies now have to be used in the shed in so many different ways. One of my big ethoses when it comes to building or setting up a shed is when you're using your tools and that, you want to make them quick and easy to set up, because if they are quick and easy to set up, you are more likely to use them and use them in the correct way, rather than going, forget about it, that's too hard, I'm not going to set that up, or just make do with some other tool or something like that, or take shortcuts, which can end up biting you in the ass further down the track. So having the right tools, quick and easy to set up, just like this area now is, makes a huge difference to getting a better quality outcome or making the job more enjoyable. If you like this episode, and I hope you have, because it is a little bit something different for the workshop, please consider liking and subscribing. It goes a long way. And if you want to help support the channel even further, head on over to the website where you can buy a bunch of merch, stickers, t-shirts, hoodies. There's a couple of new designs of t-shirts out now as well too, and we finally have stubby holders in stock as well too, so go ahead and get yourself one of them. It goes a really long way to helping us do what we do here, building stuff like this. Word of the day, I don't really have one for this episode, I don't think, but if you can help me out with what I can put above that shelf there, that sort of blank area there, I need to figure out what we're going to do with that space, because it looks a little bit empty at the minute. I don't know whether to just put some old school advertisement of cars and stuff up there, or whether to put more shelves, or what to do with it right now. So if anyone's got any ideas, put it in the comments below. Yeah, we'll see what I end up doing with that space in the future. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the Hackshop Garage scanning and printing area finally done. Which means now we can get back to doing what we should be doing, which is building cars. Cars like that Cortina that you might have seen in the background in a few shots here. We need to get stuck back into that and get that thing on the road as soon as possible. So hopefully next episode you'll see us working on that. Or something else. I don't know. We never really know. We don't really have much of a plan here. But anyways, we'll see you next episode. Some people might think I put way too much effort into this sort of stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably do.